All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the July 11th, 2018 edition of Kubernetes Contributor Experience. I am experiencing some internet bandwidth issues, so if I'm cutting out, please feel free to interrupt me at any time or hit me up on chat, and I will repeat myself. But I did link the meeting notes in the chat. So feel free to add yourself, add agenda items, and then we will get right into it. So first things first, we usually do reoccurring items, like for instance, introduction of new contributors. I don't see any new contributors on the line right now. Alex and Caitlin, have you been on the call before? If not, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yes, I've never been on it. My name is Alex. And I work for the Linux Foundation, so specifically with CNCF. And I'm on this call because I'm working on the design of the new community page. So, well.
I'm like, that's my flippers flapping right now. Caitlin, do you want to give a quick intro? I think you've been on the call before, but I don't know if you've given an intro.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever given an intro before. Hey everyone, I'm Caitlin Barnard. I also work on CNCF. I'm also very involved with Kubernetes. I've been the communications lead on the release team. I work on the blog, and I'm also working on SIG docs now. So I know I've worked with a lot of you, but nice to see you all on here.
Yes, awesome. Welcome. George, you have a hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to add some context for everyone. So we had a call with Caitlin and Alex a few weeks ago.
We have an agenda item for this.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yep.
I'll just shut up then.
Yep. And then now we have community meeting stuff, which we're good with. And then one of the items is choose graph of the week. We have not had a DevStats graph of the week in quite some time, which means that we are extremely late on our SLA of at least once a month. I don't know, Elsie, if we want to have a sidebar conversation about DevStats in general, or maybe if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can have a conversation about it. But I feel like we should start to fill that slot. I mean, we've got a KEP of the week now, which sort of fills things up, but I thought DevStats did bring a nice sense of where monitoring the project health perspective. So I guess we'll just sidebar this for later on. Maybe I'll just add an agenda item for it. But I do not, as of right now, have a graph. Does anybody on the call right now want to share a DevStats graph of the week tomorrow for maybe like 30 seconds to 60 minutes as to like what you're seeing in the graph and why it's cool? Maybe even something like about the 111 release that could be cool to show, or
so one of the reasons I haven't been proposing graph of the week is that we're still having data problems.
Yep. Do we want to talk about that on the community meeting?
I think we should just mention it. You know, we could say, hey, we're finding some data problems. If you're interested in helping, here it is. That's why you're not getting stats. And I think that just remains transparent. And then
And is the major discrepancy just the duplicate data amongst across repos?
No. We've got a handle of that on that, as far as I know. No. The issue is this is the ongoing issue with losing events.
Okay.
So, for example, if you look at the number of open pull requests now, it's about 3 times what it should be, because we're not getting all of the close events.
Okay.
And Lucas is continuing to work on that, but we're now having to use a sort of complicated system of pulling stuff from GitHub Archive and pulling stuff from the GitHub API and checking them against each other, et cetera, to try to avoid missing any events. We don't have it working yet.
Yeah, so I was working on that. Last 2 weeks I was on the vacation. The work that was done is syncing new events that we are missing, but it started doing that about 16 days ago. And because of GitHub API specific working mode, I would say, we cannot get past events. So if there were some milestone changes or PR closed events that were not recorded and not happened during the last 16 days, we won't have them. Josh Berkus showed me 2 cases that we are missing something. Unfortunately, I am just after the vacations and trying to catch up with things. I didn't yet started to deep analysis of this. I am going to do this tomorrow. I think we are quite good. I just need to confirm that. And if the problem is only because we are missing some old past events, we will be getting better and better every day. And sometime we will have almost all events. So I just need to confirm that this is the case.
Yeah, but that's the reason why I wouldn't want to try to show anything around the 111 release about data about the 111 release tomorrow. Because it would still not be caught up.
Cool. All right. Well, congratulations on the sentiment of getting better every day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think someone else was attempting to talk too. No. All right. All right. So let's go on to our first agenda item. We can, like I said, we can always talk a little bit more about dev stats at the end of the call. I did put an agenda item on there just to capture some of the stuff that we were saying. So first things first is Tim with the Linux Plumbers Conference, which just reminds me I need to add another agenda item.
So this was a question that came to me from one of my coworkers who's involved with organizing the Plumbers Conference. They have a format that's kind of what I think we were aiming for more so than what ended up happening at KubeCon in Copenhagen in terms of trying to be minimal, almost no presentation, and instead conversation. And as they've kind of gotten more broad than just Linux kernel and stepping into including discussion and conversation on other areas and having developers from the broader ecosystem, they're wondering if it made sense to have some sort of a cloud or Kubernetes specific track there. It's probably poor timing for this fall, I'm guessing, just because it lands right in the middle of a number of other things that are going on. But I wanted to bring it up here just in case folks were interested.
I think I may have gotten back to you. If I have not, I apologize. But I think I know some people that might be interested, so I just have to do some poking. Yeah, like anybody on the call would be interested, and I guess maybe are they looking for folks to help run it, help chair it, or just kind of like an okay from the community type of deal?
My impression was probably sort of, well, first of all, I guess okay from the community, but then spreading word in the CFP, potentially have a chair help vet the things that are coming through the CFP. But just, I think the first question was, does this make sense? Is it desirable? Is it viable? So, I mean, if anybody's got the slightest interested, definitely reach out to me and I can connect people.
I think it's viable just because folks don't want to go to China. Well, I'm not saying everyone. Some Kubernetes folks don't want to go to China for KubeCon, especially some of the folks in North America. And I think Linux Plumber, Vancouver. I see it on the agenda. So that just might be a closer commute, especially all the West Coast folks. So I think it's viable. I've heard nothing but good things about the Linux Plumbers Conference. So I guess maybe if you want, just get the wheels started and ask them, just say, hey, we think it's viable. What do you need from us? Kind of thing. And kind of get things going that way.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
Wait, so we're talking about having an actual official Kubernetes developer day a month away and about 100 miles away from the one that we're going to have in Seattle?
Yeah, this would be at the same time as China.
So I'm not sure that it was an official developer day, but it's a forum where developers can get together to discuss things. And if folks aren't all traveling all the way over to China for whatever reasons that week, and we are having conversations that'll be happening that week anyway. So I don't know. I think the more forums where things are being discussed, there's utility in that, but also, yeah, the overlap both in time and splitting of the group of people who are talking is potentially a problem. But if people have things that they'd like to talk about and present and are already potentially attending the conference for other reasons, it can make sense to me.
All right, thanks, Tim. And I saw that you put contact Tim in Slack if you're interested in participating. That's awesome. Yeah, let us know, I guess, next week what happens with that. All right, George, your next YouTube management. Jeff.
Yeah, so Jeff Sika, who's been participating in office hours, I'd like to add him to the YouTube channel for management as a backup for me when I travel. So when I'm on the road, he can cover Meet Our Contributors and office hours. He's currently in the process of applying for Kubernetes org membership, and he's working on the dashboard and a whole bunch of other things. So I just wanted to get an act from everybody before just randomly adding him. I don't know what the process is.
Would he have your same setup if he's covering you?
Yeah, so I think what we're going to do is when he does cover me, when I get back, we would regenerate a new YouTube. So to ensure that we have like a rotating key for YouTube so that, you know, it's just regularly being rotated.
It wouldn't be an always on thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine with me.
Yeah. Basically, I go on holiday, I generate a new key for him. I come back, I revoke his key and generate a new one for myself. And I think that would give us coverage for when I go on holiday and things like that.
Do we hear any objections? All right. Continue on, George. All right. And then Vlad with our weekly Slackbot update.
So, I mean, to address the last point, George, just don't go on vacation. And then
I know. Exactly, George. Don't go.
So I will share screen. Give me a second.
And also, Vlad, I know we have some folks on the call that may not know what you're talking about just based off the people that I see on the screen. So if you want to give just literally like a 20-second overview of what the heck this is, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that there's a Slack bot that we installed in the Kubernetes Slack channel. It essentially looks at the conversations. It's mainly looking at a Kubernetes user. It's looking for conversations, and it looks for like where people are asking a question and somebody else answers that question. And once it sees that, it basically says like, hey, this looks useful. Let us store it for the future. And then in the future, when like somebody asks the same exact question, then we just pop up one of those stored answers. It's kind of I don't know if it's like a very good descriptive version of like at a high level, but the idea is just to like the same questions keep coming up on Kubernetes users. So we want to kind of use that to, answer questions in the future. So what you're looking at on the screen is some of the questions that were added over the last amount of time. I mean, the kind of short, kind of when I'm going to the features, like, or the stuff that was added in the last couple of weeks. So very small thing is that like now in the past you saw it, it's now sorted by date. So it's kind of hard to like review these things if you ever actually went into this dashboard thing. But now you can see we have actually 57 things that were added in the last few months, and also makes it a little bit easier. And actually this was like, thanks to Bob, he was doing this for a little bit, that he was like looking at all the unapproved questions. So the unapproved questions are basically when we ask somebody like, hey, we found this question and answer that's very useful, can we store it? And then the person either doesn't click yes or just doesn't click anything, or, just kind of clicks ignore or something. So then these are all the questions that are kind of ignored. And actually I was looking at some of them and it's like, well, actually some of them do look kind of useful. It's just, it was a little harder to go through them in the past because they weren't really sorted. So now it is. So tiny tweak, but makes it a little bit easier if anybody wants to do this. And if Bob wants to go through this some more, because I think they're at it like every 2 hours or something, that'd be great, Bob. You're the best.
I'll try to make time for it.
I mean, yeah. So the other feature, so I guess the other big thing that was added, it's not very obvious from like the list of answers here, but I added the all of the Stack Overflow questions that were tagged with Kubernetes. So now when somebody asks a question, it might pop up a Stack Overflow question, Stack Overflow answer. It's something like 8,000 or close to 9,000 answers. So it actually pops up those answers a little bit more right now. But the one thing that also I did was to turn down the relevance and everything else. And so because of that, it's actually been not that great. So over the last couple of days, like it hasn't been showing up a lot of answers. It's only like showed up something like 3 answers today. But the goal here is to really improve the relevance of that thing over the next couple of days. I mean, otherwise there's not like, so the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge over the last few weeks has been like just improving the relevance and making sure that the questions that come up, or like when somebody asks a question, that the answer that we're providing is as good as possible and actually is the right thing. Or if it's not the right thing, then how do we like just not show it up if it's, we can guess that it's not the right thing. So that's been kind of, it's been on and off. So like in this thing, the purple line is like a percentage of the time that it's useful, versus yellow means it's helpful, and then blue means, hey, we actually answered somebody's question. So this is a pretty good distribution. This is pretty bad. Also, the black line and purple line are showing like how many actual questions, like how many raw questions we showed, and kind of related to this axis. So like today, for example, we only showed 3 answers, but all of them were not really helpful. Versus, last week we showed 14, and it was like 1 helpful, 1 useful. Like one of them was helpful. One person actually said, yes, this answered my question. And then there's a bunch that weren't helpful. So yeah, I mean, this has basically been the big challenges: figuring out relevance, figuring out how to like show the most useful information possible. And if we don't have the most useful information, then don't show anything. And then kind of some of the other graphs aren't really as interesting. I mean, so basically we ask, like, if we show up too many times, we say, do you want us to mute us? Or do you want to mute us so that we don't show this in the future? I mean, like, so 2 people muted in the last couple of weeks. This is the second, I think. I looked it up. It wasn't like somebody that contributes a lot, so I think it wasn't that big of a deal. I also went back to some of the people that, like, in the beginning, we were kind of showing up a lot more before I dialed it down and made it a lot more accurate. So like there was a lot of people that muted in the beginning. I actually went back to all of them and said, hey, do you mind if I unmute you? And then if it still bothers some, then just mute again. And I don't think so far, I don't think anybody remuted, so that's good. And then the rest of it is like, the storage pipeline is people are adding questions. I'm not too focused on this right now because we do have a good source of answers from Stack Overflow and stuff. But once I kind of figure out more of the relevance, this is the stuff I'm going to work on some more. So yeah, any questions?
This looks really good. I'm really interested to see now that the Stack Overflow questions in there, what kind of tuning we can get.
Yep.
This is all sweet, dude.
Any other questions for Vlad or comments, concerns, objections?
Is there the graphs and stuff that we're seeing, will that ever be something that the community can go in and see metrics on, or we just show up at the call and?
So I mean, those are all just like part of the admin site. I don't know how it's kind of back to like, I guess George, like, so basically I've been just adding people to that site whenever George is like, hey, go add this person. So if George is like, hey, go add this person, then I can add you to the dashboard. You can see it.
I'm just interested.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And this is our, in Hippie, this is our kind of like a test phase too for this. So like if we decide to take this on, then we can work with Vlad on how we can publicly make the charts accessible.
Nice.
But I mean, for right now, we're just using it to see if this is going to work for us. So you're actually up next. So if you want to take it from here, go ahead.
Wonderful. I wanted to address a few things. One is Asia Pacific being in this far over to the left. We start pretty early. A lot of the meetings they're averaging for me around 3 a.m., which is, well, it's before I've had my coffee. This is a 4:30 a.m. meeting, which is actually quite delightfully late in the day. And then that's I'm trying to make sure we don't, as a culture or as a community, have a really North American focus, because people have normal 8 to 5 jobs there and they choose prioritization for their 8 to 5. And I'm not sure how to like document or how we could encourage that. I'm just feeling the personal pain of that, and I know other people in Asia Pacific and westward are probably feeling similar. The other thing is when there's meetings that are canceled in the community, if I get up at 2:30 and I didn't get notification that they decided not to meet, that hurts even deeper. So I just want to say, when you do that, it hurts to the community at large, and it's an undelightful experience.
That's definitely a message that we can pass on to our SIG leads. One of the major issues that we're having right now is calendarization and the centralization/decentralization of that, because right now it is decentralized and individuals own calendars, which means that we as a collective unit have no control over that. But I just want to let you know that your voice is very much heard, and that we are indeed working on trying to figure this out. I know some of the groups have actually attempted other time zone meetings, whether that was in addition to or in lieu of supplemental, and some of those work and some of them didn't. Like I know Nodes works, but we did try a more friendly time zone for you from the community meeting perspective. I think it was like a year ago. George may remember that. And that did not work at all. I think we only had I think it was like under 5 people come. But that's not to say that's something that we can't try again, because it has been a year and our community has had explosive growth, especially in China. So I think that's something that we can talk about and try out again. Does anybody have any other thoughts on this topic? I know it is a topic that we talk about a lot as far as trying to make the project not West Coast only. And I know George has strong feelings on this as well. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in hindsight, this would have been the perfect opportunity to not cancel the community meeting during the 4th week and maybe ask other people to step up. Is it the community meeting that you didn't get the notification on? Because I remember we set it in the community meeting prior to.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not going to call it anybody specific.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because it's a general cultural problem.
Yeah, because if it was me, I apologize.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't you. It was a 2:30 a.m. meeting.
Yeah, so I think like the next time we have, like with the big holiday coming up next week in the U.S., I think we should maybe actively make an attempt to, hey, we're going to have to find a host that week. Maybe Tim has his hand up.
Yep. Tim, you're next.
I had one other quick thing I wanted to throw in there. I've got 2 minutes. There's also things that Pacific nations, at least where I live, that have some cultural things to bring. And I just put in a KEP that it doesn't reference, but like in New Zealand, there's an identity that goes back. Here's my history from the waka or canoe that arrived for their ancestors, and say, this is my story and my family. This is my identity. It's really who I am. Also, when you get together, saying who we are and why are you here. So I just want to get some encourage some feedback on this KEP. It is trying to use that study of how people get identity and purpose and sharing that together, and actually embedding it in the core libraries of Kubernetes, and collectively gathering that information for machine learning, and for us to really have see the invisible things that are already there, but we don't really know yet, for planning our development and other components within our community.
Could you, like when you have some time, I know you need to jump now, but could you include the KEP link in the notes, and then we can weigh in on that?
I think I put it in the notes.
The PR is there. Yeah, the PR is there. I'll get the URL.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
get that for you. I got
Thanks.
Sorry, I don't have time.
No, thanks.
I'll try to jump in another time.
Yeah, your concerns are very heard. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So
And then
one of the
Sam, you had
things,
something. Go ahead.
yeah, on the release team, we've kind of talked and thought about this over the last while about how things are very largely Pacific time zone oriented. And so as the 112 release lead and along with my shadow, Aish Sundar, we've been talking about whether we have some ability ourselves to run 2 meetings. So that sort of standard 10 a.m. Pacific that captures the existing set of people, and maybe do something earlier the next day. So like both of us are potentially available for like a 6 a.m. Pacific Tuesday, which is end of day still China, but earlier afternoon Europe. So, and maybe even, so trying to figure out if we might do something like that. Of course, it's another one of these things where you split the forum, but if it's additive as opposed to splitting, I think there's potential benefit. So in the first release meeting next week for 112, we're going to discuss this and see if there's interest, because especially among the shadows on the release team, we have managed to get a few volunteers from outside the standard North America, but we also have to get them at the meetings for them to be effective, and we can't just sort of leave the problem to the 113 cycle to say, figure out meetings in the future. We got to start trialing it somehow and see what might be workable starting
Can you
now.
give us an update next week?
Definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I saw Josh's comment too about the time zone problem for the release team. That SIG should consider the same. Totally agree. I'm also very open to maybe doing, for this meeting, we could alternate times because we do meet weekly, so we meet 4 times a month, maybe 2 times during an afternoon time. I don't know, and 2 times during the morning time or something. So I'm very open to that, and we can take that to the mailing list to make a decision on for our SIG in particular. And then,
I just wanted to send here. Yeah, just to send here. Even as a person who is not located in North America and has to adapt to North American time zones, I have to mention that almost all the experiences with having 2 duplicated meetings in multiple time zones haven't been successful. So I remember when around 2 years ago, Sarah proposed to have 2 alternating community meetings on Thursdays, like one for North America, North American friendly time zones, another one for Europe and Asia, and it wasn't a good experience, especially for the second meeting where North American people haven't attended. I also heard similar stories from some special interest groups that also had a similar experience. So I would definitely like to see these meetings happening in more friendly time for most of us. At the same time, I feel that the content and the good conversations is the main target of these meetings. So we have to ensure that even for the non-North American focused meetings, we still have the good quorum of people who are managing the things and handling the things.
Yeah. And then Matt, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to do the same thing back when I did OpenStack. I mean, as it was said, we kind of center everything on Pacific time. In fact, the way we list our calendars is on Pacific time. Even a lot of our cultural norms for the way that we interact are on US Pacific time cultural norms. It's just become very ingrained in how we do things. But it is something we could try and do more elsewhere. Try to focus on asynchronous forms of communication, particularly email. And I know we have a little bit of trouble with that. Like our Google Groups emailing system and China is a problem. There's lots of things. Our communication is really geared towards what works for us here in the US, primarily Pacific time zone. If we just start to ask what works well elsewhere, it might lead us down some other paths. Asynchronous. When OpenStack, I used to lead one of the meetings there, and we would alternate weeks. Like I would be up at 6 a.m. Eastern time to host a meeting, but the meetings, of course, weren't IRC. They were not video, but it was years ago. But we did that, and it took a while to cultivate that other meeting because you'd really get a separate set of people. And so it wasn't a repeat of the same conversation. We would alternate weeks, but the conversation would almost be like its own continuity on the same topic. And a handful of people would go between both because they were very interested, but otherwise it would almost be their own conversations. And if you look at something like Asia Pacific and many of the different cultures and norms that are there, and then holding that same kind of meeting in the US, I mean, even your business drivers, your reasons, your cultural norms are different. So you might end up in very different conversations where it's not the same kind of thing. And so I think there's a lot more to it than just trying to schedule a time and hoping people show up. But if we want to expand more on a global scale and be more inclusive to views and the way things work on a global scale, it's probably useful for us to do this. And that's it.
Agreed. I think our group could maybe even lead the way. I mean, I'm totally game with super late meetings. I mean, I'm a night owl anyway. George hates it, but I am, especially when he gets emails from me at midnight. But I'm super game, and I think that, like I said, I'll take this to the mailing list, and as long as we have like a certain number of sub-project owners that are on the call, the people that are making the decisions and approving things. George says sad part is I'm awake at midnight too. Haha. You never respond to me though, George. I'm just kidding. So yeah, I'll take this to the mailing list and see if we can get started, because no, I think blending those conversations, like what Matt just touched on, is going to be crucial, because I don't want two separate conversations going on and then like our group doesn't necessarily get any one thing done. So it's super, super important. All right, so I'm going to take that to the mailing list and we can have a conversation there about it. Next is the contributor experience meeting update for tomorrow at the community meeting. I have a slew of things that we could talk about, but I'm very curious from this group, because you all are very active here, as to what we should be talking about tomorrow, because we do only have 10 minutes and I usually go over because I'm long-winded, surprise. And shout out stuff that you think we should be talking about and or updating the entire community on. Anyone want to go first? I think the community site redesign is something we should talk about. I think the contributor site is something we should talk about. I think GitHub management is something we should talk about. Are there any other workflow related customizations or any automation that we should be alerting people about? Christoph, I see you've got your thinking face on.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing coming down the line. All right, is anybody else getting feedback?
I was a little bit, but you seem fine now.
Okay.
Yay, technology. Sending people to Mars, but we can't seem to get this shit right. All right. Anyone else want to go while Christoph does some AV troubleshooting? Tim, do you want to talk, or Noah, do you want to mention anything about the new contributor, or not I apologize, non-code contributor Spark, anything there? Just that like it's going on?
It might be worth mentioning that really just more to give a warning to all the other SIGs that we will at some point be invading, asking how we can help them with the non-code roles and non-code tasks. So it's probably worth mentioning that we can just give them a heads up that we'll be coming in the near future.
Awesome. Anyone else? I also will share stuff about Zoom and our communication platforms in general, and how we are working to alleviate some pain points and research other options and solutions. Yeah, I think we've already got like 20 minutes. But anything else major that you feel like this group is working on that deserves that deserves a much wider audience from the community. Last call. If you do have ideas, put them in the agenda. I'll pull them right from here. Left sharp, clearly. I hear about left sharp again. I'm just kidding. What's the 112 mascot? Is there one yet? You could have it be me because 112 is my birthday.
There is nothing yet.
It could be the
we'll
Paris
see what
release.
happens organically.
The Paris release is organic. No, I'm kidding.
Suggestions welcome.
Pull request accepted. All right. Now next is the main show for what I've been looking forward to is the mock for, we have contributor site down. Caitlin, did you mean the community site or the contributor site?
It's the community site. I didn't add the comment, but I can update it.
Nope. That's awesome. I'm gonna update it right now. So Caitlin, take it away, and if you want, give a brief intro about the conversation that you had with George and how we sparked this and everything like that, because I'm not too sure if folks know.
Yeah, so we had a conversation with George about 2 weeks ago now about redesigning the community page on the Kubernetes website to make it really more accessible to new contributors and existing contributors, to show the resources that we have available to everyone, meetings, communication channels, all of that. So Alex has been working on some designs to incorporate all of this, and I dropped this into the doc. I'll drop it into the chat as well so you can see the mock-ups. But with that, I'll hand it over to Alex to actually talk through these. I think she's...
Oh, sorry about that. It's a little bit louder I am, so I apologize. But yes, so I'm not sure how I should, would it be good if I shared my screen and showed you that?
Yes, please do.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Is everyone able to see?
Yep. Oh my gosh, I see my face. Ah! Oh, I wasn't on mute either.
Is it out? It's okay?
Yep. Awesome.
Okay, great. So let me know if anyone can't see, but there's the page. So I did 3 rough mock-ups, and obviously they're rough. The photos, the content is very rough. I wasn't entirely sure exactly what content we would be using for sure, so I thought I'd just kind of do experiment with a couple of different options. So obviously this is just like a placeholder for some sort of statistics at the top, but the video section, upcoming event section, that would be sort of fed through, similar to the CNCF site, where it's automatically fed to the page. So there would also be some sort of event search bar, which you could search, obviously location, date, etc. And then I thought about doing a community section to find a meetup search bar. And then this is very rough, obviously, but some sort of visual buttons or way to read more about SIGs and working groups, and then resources at the bottom. So that's design number 1. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. No, I think we're all just...
Is there any issues?
No, I think we're just in all of the beauty.
It looks amazing.
At least I am.
Oh, you can see it? Okay, sorry. I thought it was lagging or something, but okay.
Nope. I think we're all just super stoked.
Okay, great. So this is number 2. This one's a little bit more sort of simple, I guess you could say. Obviously, I don't know if we put a quote about Kubernetes, but that's just an option. Then this could be a different kind of more visual event. I kind of like this option better if we could do something like that, but whatever. And then community, and then something maybe more visual for that working group series. And then resources, and then the very last one, which I think might maybe fit the design of the site maybe the best. I'm not sure how everyone feels, but this one this bar right here with featured content, events, and meetups. Sorry, I was supposed to remove featured content. That's not supposed to be there. That's kind of an anchor menu. So you would click on one of them, and it would take you down the page. So this one's just a little bit more simple, I guess you could say. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't, I kind of just sort of took the content that I thought you would need, but there's probably more that we need, et cetera. So.
No, I think this is great, Grandma. I mean, I think I understand exactly where you're going with a lot of the content placement placeholders. So I think it's awesome. I have a lot to say. I think I'm going to take most of the things that I want to say to the issue, though. But I think it's gorgeous. I think all of them are gorgeous. I'm just so excited about this. Does anybody on the call have any other things to add? I'd like for us to like keep the design decisions and actual decisions to the issues so we can be as transparent as possible so we're not making decisions on this call. But any comments or questions for Alex and Caitlin? Last call for alcohol. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. You are benefiting the community 100-fold. Tim made a comment that he likes the emphasis on the people. Yes, 100%. George, I know, is thrilled about that as well. And George also said he's going to add stuff to the issue. Yeah, like I think the major thing for this is less about SIGs and working groups, because we'll have a page that's dedicated to that now, which is the contributor site. So if we could, like, instead of where the SIGs and working groups placeholder content is, if we could talk about the contributor site, like maybe give a preview in some kind of modern way than just a link, I think that would be cool. But again, I'll take that stuff to the issue. That's like the only major thing that stood out to me anyway, is sort of not necessarily needed, if you will. But that's it. Anybody else? Any objections? And then as far as rollout time period and development and things like that, like once we get the content situated and figured out, how long would we need for the development of, and then ultimately the launch?
So that's so I'm a very basic developer. I can't really do a lot of the functionality that we'll need, for example, the event stuff. So I'll work with Caitlin, obviously, but I'm not really sure how it works. Do we have a front-end developer on the team that could help, or how does that work?
If you let us know the skill set that you need, like the exact skill set, we can definitely do a call. We don't have anyone on staff here, if you will, in the SIG to do this, but I know George knows people from the contributor site, recruitment and whatnot. So just let us know exactly the skill set that you need, and then we can start recruiting, or I can ask the NCF to possibly fund another contractor or something of the sort. So just let us know what resources you need, and feel free to ask for the world right now, and then we can. Because I mean, I like the site. I think it's great. It's such a good sales point. So just let us know what you need, and we'll do everything that we can do to make it happen.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And it's going to depend a lot on the actual design we do end up with. I think I would say probably 80% of it. So in that case, if we finalize the design pretty quickly, I would say maybe a couple of weeks or two. Is there a date that you really want it up by, or is it kind of this?
I mean, at this point, I think KubeCon China, just because it's a major event, but that's in November.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think if we could have it up as soon as possible, I think that's the best response, like any development.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, as soon as possible. I don't think there's necessarily a mega rush, if you will. I mean, the only mega rush we have right now is how to publicly display the calendar, because we're having Zoom and stuff issues, but I think we can hold that off for a second and figure out some other solutions. But thank you so much, Alex, again. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. No problem.
And we'll take it to the issue. Thank you. All right. Next agenda item. I am also going to add the, oh no, the issue is right there. Awesome. So everybody, the issue link is in the meeting agenda. And then George, you have a question about DevStats company representation. And then after George, I'm going to skip to Christoph really quick because I know we need to talk about some GitHub management sub-project stuff that's super important. And team structure stuff that's super important. So George and then Christoph.
Yeah, just real quick. So I'm trying to make sure because I have coworkers that are going through the membership process in Kubernetes, and I wanted to ask because I'm getting questions about the privacy implications of having like the CNCF big list of emails and stuff like that. And I was wondering if someone could point me to an issue or like how are people, like if we have people that are at work and you want them to count, you know, for a certain company, but they prefer to use a personal email address. Are there policies people are following? Generally speaking, I just want to make sure that I'm doing it consistently, but in a way that isn't, you know, force everyone to use their work email address at GitHub or something like that.
Would that be more of a Heptio question as far as do they need to sign a corporate CLA?
Yes. Yeah, so I guess so my question is more for Lucas there, like do we have a guideline on, you know?
We only, actually we don't have any guideline about this. There was some discussion about email addresses and companies' affiliations before the new European law. I don't remember even how it is called. But actually, some other people are handling this. I only added some documentation. How can you request your personal data to be removed? And those documents are in CNCF GitDM repo and CNCF DevStats. And you can follow the instructions there and create a PR with a specific entry that you want your name removed. In addition, you don't need to put this name in this PR. There is a special tool that generates SHA 256 hash of the data you want to remove. So you can even provide encrypted data that you want to remove and create PR with this. And I will just run few tools to make sure that your data will never show up again. And we already had, I think, 3 or 4 such cases, and that's it up to this point.
Okay, that answers my question. I know we're short on time.
Do we, Lucas, what you just said, is that written down, documented somewhere? And if not, should we, I mean, we have a recording of it, so we can easily just transcribe this.
I will try to put the links in the chat. There are such documents, but I don't know if the meeting not end before I find them. So just let me paste them.
Okay, that's cool. And then George, if you want to go through that documentation, and if what Lucas said isn't in there, then we can go back to this recording and just document it.
Yep, thank you.
No, you're awesome. Thank you. All right, and then Christoph, do you want to take it away about all the GitHub management and team structure stuff?
Yes, I will keep it very brief because I know we're short on time. So there's 2 agenda items that I'll talk about really quick back to back. First is the GitHub management subproject proposal. I haven't put this out to the email list, but I'll be creating an issue, and I will put it out to the email list later today. But I thought you'd give you guys a sneak peek and at least bring it up here. I am proposing that we create a new subproject and contributor experience specifically around management of GitHub as a tool. It is right now, all the GitHub management work that we've done has all been kind of ad hoc, and it's been people with privileges, people with knowledge, kind of helping out and doing things, but a lot of that has been tribal knowledge, and there hasn't been a lot of set policies around who should do what is the checklist of things that they should do? Are we allowed to do something? Is there processes and communication that needs to go through for certain things? So I'm proposing that we create a subproject around being able to kind of set those policies and manage manage things like permissions, repo creation. There are specific things, like in the proposal, I outlined specific things that would be part of the sub-project and things that would not be. So things like tooling and automation for GitHub, not under the sub-project. There's already work that goes on under SIG testing for that, and there's also the contributor workflow and automation sub-project that handles the tooling. This would not be to handle tooling. Some policies around things like, can a repo be created? Those are the responsibility of the steering committee and SIG architecture. And things like moderating GitHub, while we need to have policies around like who has the button to push to moderate things, so it's clear who actually owns that button to push. Actually setting moderation policies would be steering committee, code of conduct committee, and the moderation sub-project in contributor experience. So I try to outline things that are in and things that are out. So there's a link to a Google Doc in the meeting notes. I will also send out, like once I put it into an issue, I will send it out to the email list. I'm going to give a generous time period for comment, because it's basically, I'm slicing out part of the pie that was never given out. It was never kind of divvied out to specifically to contributor experience, or specifically to SIG testing, or specifically to any other SIG or group. It's just been kind of, you know, Ihor, Caleb, Garrett, myself, Eric, like people with permissions kind of doing things and helping out, but we need to kind of codify some of that work under some sort of authority. So that there's also things like, if somebody wants to make a change to those policies, they know who to go talk to, as opposed to it being kind of this, you know, opaque group that ends up just kind of doing the good for the project. So that's number one. Number two is, I've also put an issue out there. We talked about this last Contribex meeting, I think, about GitHub team structure and cleaning up. You know, we have like 5-6 different teams that we're creating for every SIG. We stopped officially creating the mirror accounts out to Google Groups for it, but I also want to propose, like, what should that GitHub team structure look like? So I want to kind of highlight that issue that I already created. It's been out there for a while. But if anybody has any comments or thoughts, there's a link to that in the meeting notes as well. Any questions or comments very quickly on that? Otherwise, I'll put those out to the mailing list, and we can do comment on mailing list and issues as well.
Any objections? Let's start with those.
That's great. No objections from me.
Good objection, Elon. Last call for objections. Jace said, any steering committee things, please create an issue in the steering committee repo, and then Jace can add it to the project board. Oh, said project board, which means we're late on ours. All right, last call for objections for Christoph. All right, and then I have a very quick objection call for the mailing list item that just went out recently for the cat for discuss.kubernetes.io and taking that on as a supported platform. Does anybody have any objections that they see here or see fit to discuss at this point in time? I have not personally or on the mailing thread or on the mailing list thread received any. So it sounds like we're full steam ahead with Friday as a official possibly implementation day. Any objections? This would be, again, for us to take on Discuss as a fully supported communication platform under the communication subproject for Kubernetes. And Bob added in chat that Discuss just crossed over the 900 user mark. Congratulations to George, Bob, and all of the awesome Jeff, everybody that has been working on the Discuss platform, very awesome. Bob, if you need swag, I'll swag you out. So let me know there. All right.
No objections from me, but what I would like to see is, because if we're going to take this on and we're going to support it, I would love to see some explicit +1s from people saying like, hey, we like this idea and we would support it. Because I haven't seen a whole lot of +1s on that thread. I don't think any. But yeah, if people are in support of this, would love to see some +1s on the thread before Friday, so that we know like, yes, there's actually like wholehearted support from the SIG.
Yep. Tim, was that you that, or Bob that just came to mute?
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying formalized approval.
Okay. Yep. So everybody on the call, that was your message to +1 if you are in favor on the mailing list. And now the meeting is over. I know that I have an item that I didn't cover, but that's fine. We'll cover it next week. Go forth and be awesome. Any other comments really quickly? All right. Have a great Wednesday. Bye, everybody.